with this. But now let's look at the following year. This is where we are now, right? We're here in January. And this is why I said what we had in October, November, December was probably the greatest concentration since 9/11. Now, global lightning and vigilant shield. One was nuclear bomb goes off in Mobile Bay, Alabama. U.S. thermonuclear confrontation with Russia over Ukraine. Close. I mean, thinkable. Busy night seminars on nuclear, nobody knows. Global storm. Now remember before on 9/11, we had Global Guardian. Sounds relatively reassuring, right? Now you have global storm. Not so reassuring, right? Desert shield, desert storm. Not good. War, right? Warlike. That is because they've changed the name in honor of the new aggressive first strike nuclear posture. You can't have Global Guardian anymore. It has to be Global Storm. Global Lightning, that's the attack on North Korea and the Soviets, Russia, in this pattern. Vigilant shield, an integral part. Now, Able Warrior, worldwide anti-terror drill. It struck me that might have been the French riots. That's just a guess, right? The French riots of November. Terminal Fury, biological and chemical in the Pacific. Now here we are going into Global Thunder. Not good, huh? Lightning, thunder. Able Warrior again, and able ally with NATO. This is what they do. This stuff is going on all the time. Go to Team 8 Plus. You can find this, and there may even be updates. So we can't go into all of this stuff, but the average person is simply bewildered. You have no idea these things are going on, but they are, and this is how they're spending the $500 billion.
The lightning and thunder, does this have anything to do with weather manipulation exercise? It
could, but this is Stratcom, right? I don't know. These are the people who like nuclear weapons. Now, can we go back to the other one? Back to the other slideshow and just wrap up quickly? I realize people are failing. Anyway, let me just say one thing for sure. You have the Bush White House in crisis. And some people last fall began thinking, oh my God, he's going to fall, he's going to collapse politically. He will not collapse politically until the 9/11 myth is dismantled. He will keep his base of 30 to 35 to 40% of reactionaries and cretins and the indifferent and whatever they are. And he will wage war indefinitely. There is no end to the slaughter, and indeed you'll have a wider war. The neocons say, hey, we're losing in Iraq. We forgot to solve the problem of Iran and Syria. In other words, a psychotic flight forward into a wider war. The only way this can be done is to make the 9/11 issue come to the fore. Now, the other side of the question is, when you're dealing with this, and then go ahead, if we can. Wonderful.
The other one. Coming up.
It just says New York City and the date. Back in Watergate, you may remember that it was common knowledge for people alive at the time that Nixon was tempted to have a wag the dog moment. He wanted to launch foreign wars in order to distract attention from Watergate. In the Kippur War of October 1973, Nixon called for a total U.S. worldwide thermonuclear alert. The Prime Minister of Great Britain, Edward Heath, a conservative, said this was done purely for political motives. It was purely a political fraud by Nixon and Kissinger to try to deflate Watergate. We are now in that kind of a situation. The desperate neocon fascist madmen of the Bush White House, they are determined to stay in power. A lot of them now face jail. If you take a neocon and ask him, which is better, World War III or you go to jail, the question is answered. Back in Watergate, there are two pieces of evidence we want to cite. Haig and Kissinger, during Watergate, kept special surveillance over the nuclear football with the launch codes. And whenever Nixon asked for it, they would be all over him like an ape, so to speak, so they wouldn't pull them out and try to launch something crazy. In the last days of Watergate, Schlesinger, the Secretary of Defense, put out an order to all U.S. combat commanders saying, if you get an order from Nixon to attack anybody, ignore it, disregard it, until that order is confirmed by me, Schlesinger, or Kissinger. Now, who is there that's going to restrain the Bush White House? I don't know who. I don't see it except the citizenry, but somehow more has to be done. Now, let me just, just on this. All through the past year, it should be obvious, Bush has no Iraq argument. All these arguments don't turn on Iraq. He always defends himself. When his back is to the wall, it's always 9/11, 9/11, 9/11, hard, hard, lessons of 9/11, 9/11, 9/11. There's one. This was last summer. How about that one? Same story. How about this one? Washington Post likes him. September 11th takes center stage. And what's going on, of course, is the clash of civilizations. We'll just rush through this. The various poles of world civilization, their idea is to play one against the other, right? The idea is that Islam doesn't get along with anybody, let's attack them. Latin America somehow left out here. I've never quite figured that out. Here's World War III, according to Samuel Huntington. This is where you're headed if you don't do something. U.S., Western Europe, Israel, Australia, New Zealand, Russia, Bulgaria, Greece, India. With this, but now let's look against China, Pakistan, Iran, Turkey. Is unfortunately over in the other column now. The only winners, Latin America and Africa and Indonesia, who remain out of it. And this is the goal. This is what they're fighting for. This is the Bernard Lewis plan for the Middle East. You can see it. Kurdistan, a Sunni desert entity, landlocked. A Shiistan here. Sudan divided into two parts. Pakistan carved up. Pashtunistan, Baluchistan. Notice what happens to Iran. This is now, if you go to a neocon and say, you can't defeat Iran, you'll say, oh, we have these armies, these ethnic armies. Where do you see? We have Arabistan here, a breakaway movement to separate out with the oil area. Turkmen are going to gravitate up here to Turkmenistan. Azeris gravitate here. Kurds over here. Shiites are down here. And what's left in the middle is a landlocked Iranistan. And they say, after we've bombed them with nuclear weapons, these movements will come to the fore and we'll win the war that way. It's absolute insanity. Absolute insanity. And these people have to be stopped. We could go into the plans for Syria. At the Axis for Peace conference in Brussels, the Syrians came to the people from the U.S. who were there and said, tell us how we can stop this attack, because it's coming after us and we don't want it. We're not interested in a war. Lebanon divided into various parts, and so forth. So this is the threat. If you don't want an endless war for the next 100 years based on this, then make the 9/11 issue explode. Nixon restrained, we've had it. Part of my program is we have a whole series of leftists, left liberals, what can we call them, who don't address the issue. They do not address the myth of 9/11. Chomsky, Amy Goodman, many fine people. Galloway shows a lot of courage, but not on the issue where it absolutely counts, where you get more bang for the buck than anything else, and that's 9/11.